We live in a time when everybody talks about mental health, but almost nobody asks what a human person is. We talk about burnout, anxiety, loneliness, depression, distraction, overstimulation. And to be clear, some of that is medical. Some of it really does call for a doctor, a counselor, wise treatment, serious care. The church has never taught us to sneer at that. Grace builds on nature. If something in the body or mind needs healing, thanks be to God for the people who can help. But Fulton Sheen saw that there was also a deeper crisis coming. Not just a crisis of chemistry, but a crisis of meaning. Not just exhausted nerves, but exhausted souls. He understood that when we cut ourselves off from God, we do not become freer. We become divided. We become harder to live with, harder to understand, and harder to console. We lose any stable answer to the simplest question in the world. What is a human person for? And once that question goes unanswered, everything starts to shake. Our thoughts become louder, our desires become less trustworthy, our relationships become more fragile. We start looking inward, not to examine our conscience before God, but to endlessly manage ourselves. We monitor our moods, curate our identities, compare our lives, and keep reaching for one more distraction to quiet the noise. The modern world tells us this is freedom. Sheen knew it was another kind of slavery. He once said, "A man who no longer believes in God no longer believes in himself." That's exactly the kind of thing our age does not understand. We assume unbelief makes us independent. Sheen saw the opposite. If we are not made by God, for God, then the self becomes a problem with no solution. We have to invent ourselves from scratch, defend that invention every day, and panic whenever it starts to crack. That is not peace. That is spiritual instability. And look at the conditions we have built around ourselves. Constant noise, constant images, constant outrage, constant access to everybody else's life. We have created a world in which silence feels threatening. A free moment feels unbearable. The phone comes out before the soul can even speak. Sheen would not have been surprised by that. He knew that a soul cut off from God does not rest well. It reaches for substitutes, entertainment, stimulation, endless novelty, anything but recollection, anything but prayer. That is why his answer was never merely intellectual. It was sacramental. It was ascetical. It was deeply Catholic. This was a man who made a holy hour every day for 60 years. Every day. Before the Blessed Sacrament. That was not a private eccentricity. That was the source of his clarity. Sheen knew peace is not something we manufacture through technique. Peace is what happens when the soul comes back under the rule of God. And that point matters, because the real danger in our age is not just that we suffer. It is that we misdiagnose the suffering. We call the whole crisis psychological when much of it is spiritual. We call it stress when some of it is sin. We call it low self-worth when underneath it is alienation from the God in whose image we were made. That does not mean every anxious person is guilty or morally at fault for every suffering. It means the human person is more than a nervous system. We have souls. We have consciences. We are ordered toward worship. And when that order is broken, the pain does not stay neatly locked in a religious compartment. It spills into everything. So what did Sheen see coming? A civilization full of comforts and full of misery. A civilization with more techniques for self-management and less idea what the self is. A civilization that confuses stimulation with joy, therapy language with wisdom, and self-invention with freedom. The church's answer is much older and much better. Not self-construction, but conversion. Not endless self-analysis, but repentance. Not noise, but prayer. Not isolation, but communion. Christ does not simply teach us to cope with ourselves. He restores us to the Father. There's a great line in St. John's Gospel where Christ says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you." That's the distinction right there. The world offers management. Christ offers peace. The world offers techniques. Christ offers reconciliation. Fulton Sheen saw the mental health crisis coming because he saw the God crisis underneath it. And if we want more than temporary relief, we have to go deeper than the culture does. The soul is not healed by distraction. It is healed by grace.
This is the Catholic Frequency.